Charles, thanks for being here.
Yeah, pleasure.
If you don't know who Charles is, guys, Charles Gorman is a team leader and founder of Ethos Property Advisors. He's been in real estate for 6 years. He works over at the Cry-Like brokerage here in Knoxville, Tennessee. He's the founder of the Sono Investors Group, which you can find on Facebook. He's a conservationist and really interested in acquiring and currently owns land and camping areas in Sevier County. He's done multiple flips before, generally has a renovation strategy, and holds multiple rentals for long-term residual income. And today we're talking about real estate, investing, business growth, all the different topics that an entrepreneur would love to hear, especially networking, relationships, and how you've built incredible community in Knoxville of people who just love hanging out with you, talking with you, and doing business with you. So
yeah,
this will be great. So tell us about you, your story. How did you get into real estate? Was it the lifelong dream? Was it a pivot out of a different industry? Why do you do what you do?
Yeah, never was a kid playing in the woods and thought I'd be selling real estate. But now in real estate, I get to play in the woods and get paid for it. So it's kind of a cool segue. It's come full circle on that. But no, I've never. I took one of those aptitude tests in high school, and it said inconclusive.
Those are super accurate. So.
Yeah, well, I always knew that I didn't really like to go with the fads or go with whatever, but that also left me kind of aimless as well. I went to post-secondary school to do paint and body on vehicles. I thought, hey, I love art. I was big art in high school. Thought it'd be cool to do the paint and body on really awesome old muscle cars and stuff like that, and figured out it's a very niche market for that, and where people actually have money. I also graduated around the time of '08. There's an economy shift in that time, so there weren't a lot of people spending money on paint and body, so I got a job at the city of Knoxville doing the paint and body on the buses. Great job. Taught me a lot of hands-on skills that I already curated, but taught me attention to detail, and that helped me segue into getting into real estate as well. So met a mentor. My dad was a builder, so that I got that background and everything. But one of my mentors in getting into investing and real estate in general, Homer Mills, was an older gentleman that took a chance renting to me on, I didn't have credit. I bought everything cash, thought, hey, you save up for things, and that's how you do it. Screw owing people money. Mm-hmm. And he said, Charles, you need to start making money when you sleep. And I was like, I don't know what that is, man, but it sounds good to me. And but he noticed I was working on houses, and his house, whenever something would go bad, I'd be like, hey, plumbing messed up. Here's some pictures. I fixed it. And then they took it off the rent. So started working on his properties. And then, he kind of kept pushing me, hey, you need to do some more stuff. Simultaneously, my family, my parents, there was a raccoon house, hoarder house next to theirs. They were working on flipping. They worked me for free, helped them do the demo and renovating and stuff like that. But that kind of got me into it. But I'm sure there's more detailed questions that you got about different categories in my life. I'm not sure if that's where we're going.
Yeah. No,
I can keep going on Homer. He's a great mentor.
Yeah. No, it's awesome. So Homer, tell us, what was the biggest thing you learned from him early on?
From him?
Yeah. Sounds like a big part of your life.
Yeah, or as far as the investment side, maybe because when I look back at it now, he was such a wealth of knowledge, and I didn't put two and two together until I started to self-educate more. He gave me a lot of opportunities that I didn't know at the time, but he made sure that he tried to teach me a lesson with it, in the sense that I tried to buy his house. He's like, no, I'm not selling you this house, because he bought it when he was 18. He was probably in his 70s when I was renting from him. I think he bought it for $3,500 right out of the military. And he had
a house for $3,500.
Yeah. This was back in the 50s or 60s
wow.
or whatever, but he didn't want to let that one go. But he said, hey, I got this property up in Burnside, Kentucky that I'll sell you. And so me, my dad, my mom rode up there, and man, this house had a hole through it, trees growing in it. It was a house, there was a street, and then there was another row of houses, and then there was a lake. So it's a beautiful property, but man, it needed, at the time, I was like, man, it's going to take $100,000 worth of work, and now I would have probably said 200,000 just because of how things have changed. And it was going to be my first big project. You know, I'd worked on houses, but I've never taken on one, and also an hour and 45 minutes away. So he offered it to me on seller financing, which is, now I know it's one of the best things you can do. You don't have to go to a bank. If you can get a seller to offer you a property on seller financing, it's incredible. He wasn't going to charge, I don't even think he was going to charge me interest. He was just going to, I always paid my rent on time, so he was just going to add more to my rent. And then I think he was going to sell it to me for $40,000. So I was like, it sounds like a great deal, but I physically don't think I can get this done. I think it's just going to be a drain, and I'm going to have to respectfully decline. He said, yeah, no problem. So he calls me up about 3 weeks later, and he says, hey, man, just want to tell you I sold that property for $60,000. I was like, oh, great. Yeah, good for you, buddy. And he's like, I'm not calling you to like brag, you know, and tell you how good of a deal and you screwed up. But I kind of am, you know, kind of trying to help you realize, you know. And I was like, yeah, I mean, I really just couldn't do it, you know. Like, I physically, you know, I talked to my dad. I was like, this is going to take me a year at least of my time. I'm going to lose time in my relationship, my work. Everything's going to suffer by me doing it. He's like, well, you're very honorable, and you say you want to do what you say you're going to do, but my thing is, if I'm going to get what I want out of it and you honor that deal, you don't have to honor that you are going to be the one doing the work. And that was a shift for me in general. I was brought up, hey, if you want your fence done at your house, I'm the one who has to do it. I say, hey, I'm going to do this job. I get my hands dirty. I'm the one who does it. I don't hire it out. I don't make money off other people's backs type thing. So that was something I had to break.
So that's a shift for you.
It was a shift for me. Yeah. Well, there's multiple things that got me there, but that was one of the things. He said, you know, you could have seller financed that for me for $40,000, made a few payments, and then sold it for $60,000, and I wouldn't have cared because I'd have got my $40,000, and I want to see you succeed. And this is just a learning experience for you. So if somebody presents you with an opportunity, you need to jump on it. So that was probably the biggest lesson of it. And then he went into a story about how he had missed out on a couple opportunities. And you have to do those to learn how to identify an opportunity and when to jump on it. Now, sometimes you need to know when to say no when an opportunity could be something that, you know, isn't as good of a deal as you think it is. So
yeah, how do you know when to say no? How do you know when to say no? And in business, real estate, whatever, like, how do you know?
I think it's like the hot eye on the oven. You don't know until you try, and then you when you touch it and you feel that pain, you learn not to do it. Same. And I think we've talked about this, or maybe you help me identify it. Is if there's a pain point, if there's something I don't like about my personal life or my business, that means there needs to be an adjustment some way in the processes that I'm doing. Like, if I don't like how other agents interact throughout the process, that's probably a communication issue on my part. And I can only see the world through my lenses and what, you know, how I was brought up in things. So if it bothers me, it might not affect their view of the world. So I need to adjust my side of things. So,
yeah,
you know, and then everybody, you know, they might think if you feel like you're getting a bad deal, they might be getting a good deal. So it's all about perspective.
It's all about perspective. Yeah, no, love. And I love sharing about that, because it's like, what do you feel like biggest challenge, you know, I think in business, like what you're talking about is like the customer thinks one thing, or the client, right? You're seeing things a different way. And I like what you're just talking about. Can you describe that more? Like, what do you mean when? Because I think a lot of people, entrepreneurs, struggle with the same thing. Like the companies we work with, you know, we've been working with you for Over a year. You're
Yeah.
one of our oldest clients at this point,
Yeah.
which is awesome. I love working with you.
Yeah.
And that concept you just described, where the client thinks one thing, they have a certain perspective. The business, whatever business, not even just real estate, obviously, because there's probably plenty of people listening to this who are completely different industries. That their clients they get upset, they're confused, they fall off in some part of the process for whatever reason. It's like, talk about how you've changed that and improved it, or how that has been a turnover of the leaf per se.
Yeah.
For you.
So I learned early on, that it can be a very ego-driven business. I think any entrepreneurship is. I mean, I think the part of the reason why entrepreneurs get into it is because they hate being told what to do.
Yeah.
I'm one of those people. I was a great employee. I loved being I'm very dutiful, but I also like it with reason.
Yeah.
So I think one of the things that can be an initial struggle, and some people might not have this, but when you're starting out, you can kind of feel like the imposter syndrome or whatever, or you can see early success and then start to develop an ego or feel like you need to do things a certain way. So one of the things that I had a misconception about in real estate was that you have to fight for your clients. Like, you have to fight real hard. And I know people might hear that and say, "What, you don't fight for them?" No, I do.
If they're a client.
If
they're a client. If you're like, we've got a commitment, go to the ends of the earth, right? Is that what you're saying? Or you're saying before they're even a client, maybe you're just talking initially?
I think maybe more in an ego-driven way.
Sure.
So when I say that, it's more like I have to get emotionally involved in what is going on behalf of my clients. And I think, and I don't know, and I'll try to articulate in a way that comes back to all businesses. I think if you can let go of your ego in the way of, hey, my job as a professional is to be in a position of calmness and committed and fight through them in different means, such as like through contracts, communication. There's no real reason to get into like a mental state of being overly driven or overly aggressive in certain situations. I think could be a pitfall for people starting out. It was for me. There's a couple deals that fell through that, I've always taken ownership of things, but when you're working with other people, they have their ways of doing things. So that goes to the communication. Like, they didn't do this. Well, maybe I need to ask these questions earlier in the process.
Yeah, or educate on a piece. Maybe, I think a lot of what happens is people don't know expectations. So they have these, it's just like getting married, having a significant other, right? You have these unspoken rules, and then the rule is broken, and the person has no idea that the rule's even broken. And that's what clients do, and that's what business owners do when they don't clarify what the rules are. And setting expectations initially, even on the first phone call of what the process is, before we say, yes, we're working together. And then once we are working together, here's what the expectations are, here's the timelines, right? If all that's clear, you basically eliminate negative reviews or lost deals, as far as you can control them. I mean, sometimes you have the random out of the box, 1 out of 100, something wild happened, crazy family member, whatever, and you can't control those things. But I love that. Getting out of your own head, right? Getting out of your own way is like the key to a lot of business,
Yeah, I mean, you want to be driven, but not, in my opinion, I don't think being ego-driven in the sense of, letting it affect your full emotions and stuff.
Yeah. And that's where ethos comes from, right? Is that why you picked ethos?
Mulled over a lot of different, words, but yeah, I think that part of it is to bring in a level of, I guess, another level-headedness in a sense. Like try to look at things through our lens of our ethos is to help people invest in real estate or other aspects of their business to where they can do it in a financial way that helps them, but also doesn't step on other things or people along the way. So I know that's kind of the idea of it, in the way of we're wanting to pair the two. Like, you can be an investor, but also have some benevolence and be successful doing it as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So you started a team this year for the first time, right?
Mm-hmm.
First team. How's it been going? How have you been approaching it when you're hiring people? What have been some ways that you've been preparing with it? What are some recommendations you've gotten from Knowledge Gap, because we've been working, with you through the whole thing, and how have those gone?
Yeah, I'm new to it. It's, again, I think entrepreneurs tend to fall into solopreneurship because they don't like being told what to do. They don't like being held accountable. They don't like, and these are all self-reflection type things sometimes. Move a little quicker, don't have to take what's in my brain and put it on paper. So all those things have been something that you all have helped me with, as far as being able to take what I'm good at and then things that I struggle with and put it out there for somebody else to see and help them with their business, is kind of where we're working on things and trying to accomplish.
Yeah, what do you think the biggest piece when you're building your team? What's one of the most foundational things that you would recommend everyone do?
I think with any type of partnership or relationship or anything, they have to fit the similar personality types, in the sense of like overall goals, like values, I should say. I'd like different personality types, but same values. It's probably better to not have a bunch of me that are, we're all different, and I think that's what helps us sell differently, because we are in sales. So being able to connect with different personality types, but also have the same goals, the same values, is important.
Sure. So we got a comment on the channel one time, so I want to hear your thought on this, where we talked about recruiting on culture, values, right,
Mm-hmm.
is more important than the exact skill levels, because you can train. What's your thought on that? Do you think it's more important that they're really, really good at their skills, or that they fit into the culture, which is actually more important to building a good team, from what you've been experiencing your first year?
I think if you're talking about first steps, and I can make this a little bit longer form, I think working with somebody or working introspection on figuring out what your goals are and values are first, and what culture that you want to portray, is probably the number one step. And then I think if you're asking what's more important, I guess it depends on where you're at in your business. I mean, this might be taking a perspective from your side. Like any good answer, it depends. Not to be a politician.
That's really clear.
But I think if you have an established team of people that already get it, I think when they come in, if you have a prospect come in, they're probably going to know if they're going to be a good fit or not. Mm-hmm. And if you're in a professional setting, I'd hope whomever you're interviewing is going to have the wherewithal to know if they want to join your team or not. If they want to be a cutthroat, screw everybody else, compete to the top type business person, they're going to find the people that they want to work with. If they want to be in a situation where everybody cuddles them and they have morning meditations, you're going to find those are probably the two extremes on either side. But I think I think it's a two-way street on that. But I think it just depends. Like, if you don't have a culture, or your lack of culture is a culture in a way,
right? Yeah. It's like you can have some of the greatest people, but if there's no culture, they won't stay.
Yeah.
Right. There's that piece, and obviously, if you have a great culture but no one works, it's a two-edged sword. You've got to have a little bit of both. But clearly, if the culture isn't good and there's no skills at all, everything falls apart. And you can't have one without the other. So you either have to have a great culture and train people to the level of success that you'd like them to have, which is really what great companies do, because it's really hard to just recruit great people who have great skills, because sometimes why would they leave? If they've already got great skills, it's a tougher, and there's no better culture. It's hard. How do you even recruit that person unless you're just going to pay them astronomical amounts of money, which you could, depending on the size of your business. So you definitely could. So it definitely is situational. So let's talk about You've got this awesome networking group.
Yeah.
I've been a couple times. We've had people from Knowledge Gap go a few times. Like, we always meet great people. It's always a lot of fun. It's always laid back. And it always just feels like an open invitation. I know there's a lot of people out there who I've actually tried to make a group before I met you. I feel like I have a better understanding now just from getting to know you, going to your group. But like, how did you build this group of like 3,000 people, or if it's more, it's probably more than that on Facebook?
We're at 2,000.
2,000 people.
I appreciate the bump.
It feels like more, you know.
Yeah.
So how did you build the group on Facebook? How do you build retention? And then how do you get people to show up? Because every time I've gone, there's been 50 plus people, local entrepreneurs or investors, who are actually just talking about all these things they can do. And since, 4 years ago, again, I'm going to attribute some of this to you because I just hear about the deals you do, but South Knoxville, has grown and become a wealthier place, essentially, from all the different investments. And again, I don't know if that's all your group or whatever, but it's pretty cool.
No, I would never say that.
How'd you start it? How'd you build it to where it's at? What do you recommend people do, and what are mistakes you see that people do when they're building groups?
Yeah, so I think, again, going back, and you guys have helped me with this a lot, but I've been on this journey for a long time. I've got notes in my phone, like a notebook from like 2014 on like entrepreneur ideas and stuff like that. I always did things on my own. I was always pretty successful without. I was a great C student. I knew I was smarter than that, but I could cheat where I needed to and get things done. I was like, yeah, I know everything that's going on, and know what I need to know and know what I don't need to know, and I'm not going to spend the time. But so I hit these plateaus, and I think meeting you at the right time. But I had hit a plateau in around 2020 and 2019. Obviously, it's right before the pandemic, but then pandemic happened. I'd got into real estate. I'd done pretty well, and I just knew I wanted to get into real estate investing because that's what I wanted to do prior to even getting my real estate license. I had listened to podcasts, YouTube channels, read books, done all that things, but I just didn't know how to really do it, or I tried on my own, couldn't see a pathway, and I realized I needed to have other people around me that knew what they were doing. So I just decided, hey, I'm going to start a networking group. And I still, to this day, I'm not an expert. I'm not, I've got over the years, I've curated a lot of skills, and I have a lot of base skills that some people don't have through construction and renovating and stuff like that are helpful in the field. But the nuances of like different types of mortgages I had no idea about when I first started. You can do DSCR loans, hard money loans, and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. I'm a bit of a risk taker, so I've learned through that. And then, so I started a networking group. Just invited people. We had maybe 7 or 8 people, some of my closest friends, show up in July of 2020 at Highwire Brewing with masks on the patio. We had to wait 6 feet in line to get our beers and all that good stuff, if you remember it.
You had to wear masks, right?
Masks.
You couldn't even see if people were smiling.
We went outside, and then we had 6 feet apart, and then I guess open. I think the rules, I don't think anybody knew what was going on at the time. If you're outside, you can be 6 feet apart, but not wear a mask. If you're inside, I can't even remember now.
Yeah, sure.
So we started an in-person networking group at the worst time in the middle of a global pandemic. There was times when there was just 3 people.
Including you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was me and 2 other people.
Cool.
Well, it might have been 4 of us. It's Andre. So I think there's 4 of us. But I think, you're a big advocate for the Spartan races and stuff like that. Anything you do, you need to stay consistent with it. So we've been able to grow through consistency. And for me, I understand that you're only going to attract the people you're going to attract. So you've helped me with this. I still struggle with it because it's so in chord with me. Like, I know I'm going to attract the clients that I'm going to get because of my personality. and there's multiple personality types. So for a long time I said, well, screw the rest, not screw them, but like I know who I'm gonna I know who I'm gonna attract. So it doesn't bother me if I don't particularly attract those other people. Similarly, if you're starting a networking group, if you love wearing suits and you love driving really nice cars and trying to be the multi-millionaire that you can be, there's going to be a group for that too, that have different goals with the person that's leading it. You're going to attract the people. So one thing for me was I wanted to do something that's low barrier for myself, because if I couldn't commit to it, then nobody else would. So I picked places that I want to go. If I have 3 people, it's still somewhere I'm going to have a good night and meet 2 other new people. So if I'm going to give advice to somebody who's wanting to start it, make it close to your house. Be selfish in this, because you might think, oh, well, nobody's going to show up, or people won't show up. You just got to suck it up. And if you're sitting in a room that you hate, that you spent a lot of money on, and nobody shows up, that pain hurts a lot more than if you're at your local bar and you just have a beer somewhere, or if you don't drink in a local coffee shop and you can at least hang out and be at peace in a place that you enjoy. So kind of pairing it, be selfish with the goal that you're going to be able to help other people if you stay consistent. So you don't see muscle growth or growth in your business if you're not consistent in things. So we've been doing it. We've missed probably 3 or 4, maybe 3 or 4 meetings in the 4 years we've done it. So if I'm not here, having other people run it just for that evening.
Build like a little leadership core.
Even if 10 people show up, just at least have a meeting. If I forget to promote it as well as I did in the past, every month I get a little nervous about how many people are going to show up. We're going to have enough pizza. Are we going to have too much pizza? But staying consistent is always important.
Yeah, absolutely. So tell me, like, what's your favorite thing about your business right now? What do you think your biggest strengths are in your business? And then I want to ask you about investing, flipping, and like how you're building wealth as a business owner.
I think focusing on my real estate business more, and you guys have helped me with that as well. When you get a little bit distracted than I was, so it feels a lot better now just focusing on this, but I have the itch to get back into the investing side. I know I've got the campground and stuff that I'm working on, but figuring out a way to delegate. But what I'm really excited about is being able to niche more, working with investors. We still do help traditional buyers and sellers, but it's going really well as far as people associate me with working with investors, me with real estate. Once you start doing it, I think I started to get referrals in the 3-year range. Same with consistency. You might not see your returns on your investments through real estate, like what you put your energy into, until you've done it for long enough. Like, people thought of me as Chuck the Body Man for so many years,
Chuck the Body. They call you Chuck?
Yeah, like
I
my
love
high
that
school
nickname.
friends. Yeah.
I gotta start calling you Chuck. Let me jot that down really quick and switch that in my phone.
Yeah. Almost.
I love that. It's a great nickname.
Yeah.
Chuck. It sounds like a great body guy.
Yeah, so
sweet.
it's how people associate you, and then that's why it's always good to try to have a good reputation precede you. You don't want to, anything you do in business, or I've learned in just relationship wise, you want to try to not burn bridges, because when my first year in real estate, whether they associated with me or not, I think you get a big boost when you drop that you're starting a new business. And then that second year tends to be a little bit trickier, because you go through all the people who want you to, they love you, like you, they want you to succeed, they've been friends with you for years, and then you can see a little dip in that second year because you've kind of ran through all that, and then you're like, oh, I need to generate business from people I haven't met.
So, right, expanding your audience, like there's this whole growth curve that you have to go through, for sure. Absolutely. Yeah, I like what you said about consistency, though. Like, the best times in business are after the first couple of years. And what's interesting is most businesses fail in the first few years, right? They're like right before, right? They get like a big boost from consistency is when people feel the most like they need to quit or find something else. Because the most painful part of the business is actually just the beginning. But if you can get past the beginning, right, consistently showing up,
Yeah.
right, doing the right activities, to be successful, right, and making sure that they know what the right activities are is half the battle, especially if you're starting something new, or even if you've been in business many, many years, you might be, winning off of some fumes or connections, and now you're trying to replicate that success without those connections, or you've used the connections up to that point. And used is probably the wrong word. Maybe like, they've wanted to help or whatever. They were easy, right? They were warm. And now you're expanding audience to different segments who have never heard your name before, and that becomes a whole new process of marketing and sales, et cetera. So investing and flipping, right? So this is for entrepreneurs trying to invest and wanting to have that, beautiful situation where you make money when you sleep, right? Just like you were saying, like Homer was telling you, right? Your whole thing is renovate and hold. Why not flip? Like, are there horror stories there? Like, what's been your experience with flips?
I think you got kind of had a two-part, or maybe a half a question there. How to get started? Was that your first part of it, or
like why is
advice
renovating
to new people? Or?
Yeah, why do you think renovating's better? And you can take that however you want, but like, why is renovating versus flipping? Like, why is that your strategy?
That's my strategy because it suits what my goals are. So, I talk to a lot of investors and you've helped me, and your team has helped me. Like, when you ask, I always ask the same questions, but being able to get the core of what people want, and then identifying what their actual goals are. It's important to do, because if you're talking about investors in general, another one of those depends questions, flipping might be the thing somebody wants to do. So there is a path in different realms. Some people start wholesaling, then they take that capital from wholesaling, then get into flipping. Once they get into flipping, they start doing buy and holds. So that's a natural progression of what people do, and it works for a lot of different people. For me, personally, I don't like letting go of something I just spent so much time or energy on. Like, I have an emotional attachment to it, or I feel like if I've invested so much of my time, I'm going to spend that 50 or 80 grand if on a good day, if you make money. That's always the thing.
That's a big if, right?
That's always the big asterisk. But in my opinion, you're always going to make money if you hold something long enough. So, market shift, I can, put my rents in a reasonable rate, not gouge my people, have them a really nice place to stay. They can live there for a long time. They have a home, they can stay. Hopefully they move on. I want all my renters to buy a house one day. That's my goal for all of them. I don't want to lose them because they're great, but I want them to do that. So it's kind of that part of it as well. You can help somebody in a transitional, same way Homer did with me. He took a chance to rent to me when I had no credit. So I kind of want to be that for other people. So that's kind of
what I like about you, Charles, because you really care about people, man. You're in the helping others industry. Like,
yes,
one of my greatest, a really good mentor of mine in leadership recruiting. His name is Matt. The best thing you can do as a leader is train people to not need you.
Yeah.
The best thing as a landlord you could do is train them to not need you, right? Like, invest in something, because it's just better for them versus renting for forever, which is an expense, versus purchasing a house and paying your loan payments, which is often less than rent, depending on interest rates and size of the house, et cetera. But they're basically building equity over time through the same payments, or even maybe a little bit less, right?
Right.
Which is wonderful.
I mean, I know why they want rent for me, though, because I'm on it. If something breaks, I'm on it.
Yeah, there's value in
so
that for sure.
They're like, hey, why would I buy something when Charles has got it taken care of?
So what's your take? Like, Knoxville, good long-term rental place?
Yeah, absolutely.
Why?
Yeah. A lot of different diverse industries here. We have some entertainment. We have like the industry. We've got trucking. We've got a lot of our secondary cities are strong too. Sometimes you see metropolitan areas where it's like a desolate. I mean, outside, like, I mean, not to say anything about like Vegas, but like the pandemic hit them hard because they're only entertainment and tourism, and then literally there are no secondary cities that I know of. I'm sure there are, but you're in the desert. That's the most extreme that I can think of. But Knoxville, we have a lot of different industry.
You got Oak Ridge, you got Maryville.
Yeah, and
Sevierville.
they're both competing, which is great. It's good for any business, or way I see a municipality as a business in a sense, that if they're competing, it can all grow together in a way.
Because Oak Ridge is government contracts, right? I'm not sure of all of the Maryville industries.
Well, they got Denso, Alcoa. Smith & Wesson.
Smith & Wesson that's new,
There's
right?
tons of, and they're being very favorable. I've been to the young professionals meetups there that they say they want to compete with Knoxville as far as keeping their people downtown, investing a lot into their area. So, long term. Midterm does great, which is traveling professionals through the labs or any of these corporate traveling positions, or through the hospitals and stuff like that. So short term in the city of Knoxville, you can't do it unless it's a commercial zoned area. But we're right next to Sevierville. Knox County, you can do short term, and any of the secondary cities you can do.
And the county line's not that far from the city.
Depends on where you're at.
Yeah, some places, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, for now.
For now.
That's until they redraw the lines. Once they start getting
when do you think that's happening?
Oh, I don't know. I got to throw those little anecdotes in there.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so what's your business going to look like 5-10 years from now? Will your strategy change?
My investment strategy is going to be a little bit more straightforward. So focus on the land that we got. Try to develop that more. It's a long play. Not to correct you from your intro, it's out in Wartburg, which is in Morgan County, Tennessee. A little more affordable than Sevier County, and not as saturated. A lot of outdoor activities, hiking, mountain biking, rock climbing, rafting, fly fishing, all that good stuff. So it's kind of an outdoor destination, and then they're putting investments into their area. But that's probably, we're going to hit a milestone next year on that, and then we probably have a 5-year goal to get and use that with conservation. Also, I'd like to get in within 5 to 10 years, get more into lending. That's on the investment side. Take some of the gains that I had and lend it to people that are starting out. Put a gap between somebody who doesn't know how to get into a flip, if they need gap funding to put a down payment down or something like that. But through real estate, grow the team. Be prepared for people to grow and leave the team and be successful on their own. Maybe find my replacement, and just be more of an owner rather than an active person in that real estate team.
Absolutely. So I think like one of the things as an entrepreneur, the biggest things you worry about is how do you increase your business income, right? But I think people get stuck, or they start making income, they start growing, they do all these expenses, and they forget to start storing away, investing to where they're not needed to work all the time. So how does somebody get started? And again, I think this goes for any success level. And if they've already started, how do they continue to grow?
Yeah, I think identifying which strategy you want to go with, but not spend too much time. So some people are more apt to doing like stocks or crypto or whatnot. So I can only speak to what I know. I try not to play the expert in every field because I'm not. So if you're going to get into real estate, I think having a basic knowledge of how real estate works, and then probably owning your own property is a good idea. It depends on where you are at in life. If you got a few kids or whatnot, it just depends on how you move through it. But I always suggest if you can start with a primary house and then turn that into investment property, either by renting out rooms, or when you buying a granny house that needs renovations, bringing up the value.
You call it a granny house?
Yeah. Yeah, or it could be a grandpa or
yeah, that's right.
grandpa or whatever.
Yeah.
you can do any house that's a little bit older but in good shape.
Yeah.
Maybe paint it, add some equity, put some sweat equity into it, hold it. You got to live somewhere. Take that rent payment, turn it into a mortgage payment, and then you use that. Hopefully you can use that equity in a year, 2, 3 years to either purchase another property, continue renovations on your property. The city of Knoxville opened up density laws, I think it was 1.5 years ago, almost 2 years ago, where you can put ADUs, accessory dwelling unit, on the back of your property. So if you don't want to go out and try to find a different thing and you want to get into like short-term rentals that you can manage from home, there's a good opportunity for you there. So depends on your bandwidth, depends on your financial situation, but I think really the first step, and not to plug SoNo Investors Group, is getting out there and networking, talking to other people, hearing their horror stories, and deciding, all right, do I have the bandwidth to be a flipper? Do I have the capital? Do I have these things based on what other people are telling me? You don't want to reinvent the wheel. I'm a product of a lot of education and things, and people have figured out stuff way before me. So going to networking meetups like SoNo Investor Group, finding people that you identify with, you have same energy with, and then just trying it. So in our world, there's something called analysis paralysis. So people will sit there and run numbers and run numbers, run numbers. Just like there's no perfect time to quit your W-2 job, there's no perfect time to ask that girl out on a date. You just got to do it and see how it goes. And if you don't, that goes back to the pain point. If it doesn't work out, you can decide, maybe I hate flipping or maybe I hate dealing with renters. So that could be, I love dealing with them. Some people absolutely do not want to deal with a renter. So that's why they're into the other side of things.
Yeah.
And there's always an avenue for people getting in.
Pick a strategy, test it. If you like it, continue to go. Like our strategies, whenever you buy a house, you basically never sell it. You just turn it into a rental. You know, if you ever move, just rent the other one, and maybe it pays for the other house you move into, at least your mortgage payment.
Absolutely.
So, awesome. This has been super helpful. Thank you for being on the podcast, on the show. I think people will probably have tons of questions. So if you want to learn more about investing in real estate, if you want to join SoNo Group, reach out to Charles. He's going to give you his email and all that kind of stuff. I think it's ethospropertyadvisors.com. Is that right?
Yep, that's the website.
That's the website you can go to. You can go to social media, which is SoNo Investors Group in Knoxville, right?
SoNo is SOKNO, for short for South Knoxville.
Awesome. And you can reach out on email and phone, which will be in the description on the screen. And if you want to say it really quick.
Yeah, Charles Gorman Realtor at gmail.com. And I want to plug Michelle Goldenchamp. She's on my team as well. Rock star, local to the area, knows her stuff. Got a property in Sevierville right now, if anybody's looking.
Awesome. All right, thanks, Charles.
All right, see you.